I flipped between a few NBA games last night and landed on what looked like a tight battle. Nuggets versus Clippers, 39-35 heading into the second quarter. Immediately the thought hit me, somebody's cooking. I glanced at the box score just to see who was heating up, and what I saw stopped me cold. Nikola Jokic, 25 points, 6 rebounds in the first quarter. I checked again. No trick of the scoreboard, he was demolishing the Clippers from the drop. By the end of the third, the game was all but wrapped, and Jokic barely needed to play the fourth. He cruised to a stat line of 55, 12, and 6. That's absurd on its face. But the most unsettling part, it felt effortless. Watching him that night felt like watching someone who doesn't just play basketball differently. He's rewritten the rulebook. Has Nikola Jokic solved basketball? One of the best ways to contextualize extraordinary seasons is with game score, a metric that compresses a player's box score contributions into a single number, meant to capture overall game impact. Think of it as a snapshot of how involved and efficient someone was. Look across the last 20 years and you'll see the usual suspects dotting the leaderboard. Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, Kevin Love in their peaks. By the time you hit the 50s on that list, you're in MVP level production. LeBron, Stephen Curry, James Harden, Anthony Davis, Giannis. But when you dig into the top 10, the list starts to feel like a different era. Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo. They appear repeatedly and for reasons that are easy to see. An average game score north of 27 used to be unimaginable across a full season until Jokic did it last year. And this season, Luka, Shai, and Giannis were all trending toward all-time levels too, but then Jokic blew past already lofty benchmarks. Right now, his average game score sits at an eye-watering 32.64. That number doesn't just put him at the top, it puts him in a stratosphere separated from the rest. Even by the incredibly high standards he's set for himself, what he's doing is historically extreme. When you combine those video game box score numbers with how casually he produces them, you end up wondering whether he's just found every possible advantage and is exploiting them without breaking a sweat. People thought he started slow early in the season. Through the first handful of games, he looked pedestrian for a Jokic caliber player, hovering around 20 points, 14 rebounds, and 10 assists through the first 5 contests. That's hardly bad, but it wasn't the Jokic we've come to expect. Apparently the criticism served as a wake-up. Over the next 6 games he turned it on, and the Nuggets didn't lose in that stretch. They were winning by an average of 15 points, and his line jumped to roughly 36 to 12-11 during that run. That spike of dominance is what turned a great season into something almost mythical. And let's talk about that Clippers game because it was textbook Jokic. This wasn't a flashy highlight reel designed to wow the casual viewer. This was efficiency at clinic level. Early, they tried to muscle him out with Ivica Zubac, a solid rim presence who can clog the paint. Jokic didn't back down, he backed Zubac down. On one play, he simply used his body to walk him into the lane and score as if he were a smaller guard attacking the rim. Later in the same sequence, instead of banging through contact, he patiently slipped past the bump. Same spot, same result. An easy bucket because he'd put himself precisely where the defense couldn't contest effectively. They tried length after that. Brook Lopez stepped in. Lopez looked like he had the answer, playing with his hands up and forcing contact. Jokic turned and pulled up for an and one with Lopez in his face. It's not just that he executed that possession, it's that the Clippers rarely dared to help off him, because when they did, he was a primary passer who could dole out lethal reads. If you double him, he finds the seams. If you play off him, he floats 2s and 3s with surgical calm. As the Clippers adjusted, clogging the high post and scheming to deny his easy touches, Jokic adjusted too. He had punished their interior defense so often that when they tried to pack the paint, he pulled up from deep with unbothered consistency. He began hitting triples with the same frequency and ease he hits floaters. It wasn't theatrics, no sprawling coast-to-coast posterizing dunks, just the offense looking smooth and inevitable. He finished the night 55 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, with a 91% true shooting percentage, all in only 34 minutes. That efficiency, delivering elite production while barely breaking a sweat, was what made the performance feel unnatural. That's the core of the argument. Jokic hasn't just accumulated statistics. He's predetermined the most efficient path to scoring, passing, and occupying space on every possession. He reads the floor with a preternatural calm. He knows exactly who's on the court, who's guarding him, who's trailing, and where the best openings will appear in 3 seconds. He sees rotations before they happen and then moves to exploit them. That mental element, the chess master side of his game, elevates every physical skill he has. Take some of the small things most players do poorly. Tip-ins, putbacks, where to float when a defender flinches, when to turn and hook a pass, how to bait an overcommitment. Jokic is elite at these micro decisions. He's rarely the most athletic guy in any given matchup, and he doesn't rely on vertical freakishness or blazing speed. He's about about the finesse of placement and the timing of choices. Where to be, when to nudge, when to collapse, and when to pop. He gets an advantage because he makes the correct, low-energy decision more consistently than anyone. That's the reason people are saying he solved the game. He maximizes every possession by choosing the essentially best available option almost every single time. You can miss shots, you can have passes poked away, but if your decision making lands you the highest expected value actions repeatedly, outcomes tend to skew heavily in your favor. Most players can spot a loose rotation. Fewer can read the subtle cues of which defender will leave a gap 2 seconds before it opens. Jokic sees all that and then acts with predictable precision. He'll sell a pass to the corner with a glance, freeze a help defender with a sham, and then feed a cutting teammate because he knew 5 steps earlier that defender would bite. He's not creating chaos. He's orchestrating what he wants the defense to become. We're also seeing those qualities reflected in newer attempts to quantify IQ and impact. Researchers and analytics teams have started building basketball IQ style metrics that try to measure spatial awareness, decision quality, and tactical insight from game footage and play-by-play data. Not surprisingly, when you filter for the player with the highest grades in their cognitive and spatial metrics, Jokic comes out on top. He's not only efficient in scoring, he's the engine that creates efficient looks for teammates. Advanced metrics, box plus minus for instance, also show his unique value. Looking at the current season, some of the other league leaders sit in that historically excellent range. Luka, Giannis, Shai, each operating at levels we'd call elite. A BPM above plus 11 is rare and elite. Historically, only a handful of seasons reach that ceiling. And then Jokic sits well beyond that, into an area where comparisons become blurry because there simply aren't many true analogs. When you watch him, you notice the modest things that add up. How he corrals rebounds and instantly transitions into threat mode. How he makes a 5-foot drop-off pass or a 25-foot pocket 3 without telegraphing intention. How he floats inside shots with touch that neutralizes defenders' length. He doesn't need to explode past opponents. He nudges the defensive unit into bad posture and then capitalizes with minimal exertion. He sculpted a version of offense where the right idea, executed cleanly, yields outsized returns. At this point, calling him the most impactful player in basketball isn't hyperbole. It's just a logical conclusion once you factor in the breadth of what he does. Scoring at elite efficiency, generating offense for others, rarely forcing the wrong play, and doing it without wasting physical resources. That conservation of energy means he can do more across a game and across a season, maintaining absurdly high levels of productivity without the usual athletic toll. So has he solved the game? Maybe that's too grand a phrase. Basketball will always evolve, counter strategies will appear, and other elite talents will push back. But right now, Nikola Jokic has certainly found a method that, in practice, feels unbeatable. He's mapped the chessboard so thoroughly that opponents struggle to present sustainable answers. Every tweak they try seems to unveil a new seam he can exploit. Watching him is watching someone who has internalized the game so deeply that correct plays become automatic. That blend of instincts, touch, timing, and intelligence is why his performances don't just score, they rewrite expectations. If you're fascinated by what elite decision-making looks like on the court, study his nights. Look for the small adjustments, the extra inch of space he creates on a drop, the tiny head fake that holds a rotation, the way he angles his body to make a pass an easy one for his teammate, and an impossible one for the defender. Those are the plays that add up into historic seasons. Last night was another chapter in a runaway narrative. An all-time efficient scoring night, ridiculous box score output in limited minutes, and the feeling that the game doesn't change him. He changes the game. Whether you want to call it solving basketball or simply mastering it at an unprecedented level, the result is the same. Nikola Jokic has entered a rarefied zone where the whole league needs a fresh plan. And until someone proves otherwise, watching him is watching strategy become inevitability.